It was a humid July evening in the small coastal town of Seabrook, Maine, and the Summer Breeze Bakery's windows glowed with warm yellow light against the darkening sky. Locals and tourists alike flocked there for the smell of freshly baked bread, cinnamon rolls, and the famed blueberry muffins. Alina Ramirez, a 32-year-old single mother who worked at the town's marina, hurried down Main Street with one hand clutching her blue raincoat, the other balancing a small leather purse. She was determined to get home before her 8-year-old son, Mateo, fell asleep waiting for her. He looked forward to her weekly treat, fresh bread, more than anything else. Inside the bakery, the air was thick with the aroma of dough rising in melted butter. A line formed at the counter, where an elderly woman named Mrs. Gladwell rang up customers at the register. Her face was marked by decades of working early morning shifts. Faint lines around the corners of her mouth and eyes told stories of exhaustion and routine. When Alina approached, she saw the wide display case filled with crusty baguettes, round sourdough loaves, flaky croissants, and an assortment of pastries. "Good evening," Alina said politely, sliding her credit card into her wallet. Her voice was soft but bright, the accent of a woman raised in New York City before moving to Maine. "Could I please have 2 sourdough loaves and 1 custard-filled pastry, please?" Mrs. Gladwell glanced up and narrowed her eyes, her flour-dusty apron rustling as she straightened. "Do you know what color that coat is?" she asked without greeting, pointing at Alina's jacket. Alina's heart lodged in her throat for an instant. She looked down at her navy blue raincoat, faded at the cuffs from repeated use, and washed so many times that it had lost its sheen. "It's blue," she answered, confused. "I bought it last year at a clearance sale. It's my favorite—" "Not here, hun," Mrs. Gladwell interrupted, her tone hard. "We don't serve people wearing blue around here." She reached behind the counter to bag Alina's requested items before Alina even had a chance to finish speaking. "If you want our bread, buy the black or the gray. Blue is out." "I'm sorry," Alina said, confusion giving way to hurt. She pulled out her wallet, but Mrs. Gladwell's hand moved too quickly, depositing a loaf of sourdough and the custard pastry into a paper bag. "I'm confused. You're not serious? I just want to buy bread." "Not for someone like you," the old woman spat, her voice brittle. "Blue's been taken by newcomers and troublemakers. We don't need you here." Alina's cheeks flushed, and she tried to swallow the lump forming in her throat. "Newcomers," she echoed, turning to look at the small crowd waiting behind her. A few regulars in line, the fisherman who often bought dinner rolls for his family, the retired school teacher who came for a slice of pie every evening, looked away. No one spoke up. Alina cleared her throat. "I'm sorry. I'll just take my order and go." She grabbed the bag of loaves and pastry, her fingers trembling. She paid without meeting anyone's eyes, then turned and left, the bell above the door tinkling as though mocking her. Outside, a light rain had begun to fall, dropping cold beads onto her cheeks. She pressed her hand to her chest as though to still her pounding heart and hurried toward her car, more than a block away, gripping the bag tightly so it wouldn't tear. That night, when she arrived home to the small mobile home she shared with Mateo, the aroma of stale air and detergent greeted her. The kitchen table was scattered with textbooks and spilled pencil shavings, remnants of homework that would have to wait. She lifted Mateo into her arms, his face lighting up at the sight of the bag. "Bread?" he asked excitedly. I have bread," she replied, her voice hushed and thick with unshed tears. "I bought you sourdough, just like you like it." He smiled and hugged her, licking a drop of rainwater from her sleeve. "You're the best, Mom," he exclaimed. For a moment, Alina let his joy wash over her, and she felt her heart soften. They sat at the small round table, linen cloth stained by years of spaghetti nights, and she set down the bread. He ripped into one loaf, the inside airy and warm, the thin crust crackling at the edges. She waited until he took his first bite before she unwrapped the custard pastry for him. When he closed his eyes and savored it, she decided she would do anything to protect him and keep his innocence safe. The next morning, Alina dropped Mateo off at Seabrook Elementary School. She bent down to give him a quick hug and said, "I love you. I'll pick you up after school and we can have a picnic by the harbor." He beamed. "Okay, Mom." She drove to the marina, where she worked in the boat rental office. As she logged into her computer, the sunlight danced on the calm waters, casting golden reflections on the docked sailboats. Her coworker, Jake, glanced up from the row of phone lines and asked, "What's with the blue coat? You look upset." Alina forced a smile. "Just had a weird experience at the bakery last night. They sold me the bread, but then turned around and told me They shouldn't have served me because of my coat color. Jake stared at her in disbelief. That's messed up. Hope you told someone about it. I didn't have time, she said, shaking her head. I just needed to get home. Calm down. She exhaled and continued. I don't want any trouble. Mateo's waiting. Jake frowned. If I were you, I'd tell the town council. That's not right. I know, Alina replied softly, opening the drawer to grab a clipboard. But I don't want to cause a fuss. Not yet. Throughout the day, her mind kept drifting back to that exchange at the bakery. She remembered the catalyst, the color of her blue coat. In her former city, she had worn that coat countless times, washed and worn until the fabric thinned near the seams. It felt like a second skin. Now it carried an ugly new meaning, that wearing blue might mean you didn't belong. After clocking out at 5 p.m., Alina decided she would stop by the bakery again, just to speak with Mrs. Gladwell's manager if possible. Hope fluttered that maybe someone higher up would see the injustice. She drove to town and pulled into the small parking lot in front of Summer Breeze Bakery. The front windows were darkening as the evening light faded. She took a deep breath and pushed through the glass door, the bell announcing her arrival. Inside, 2 young employees were stacking trays of baguettes on a back shelf. They glanced at her for a moment before looking away. The place smelled of vanilla and yeast, exactly as it had the night before. But this time, the mood felt different. She felt tension under the surface. Hi, she began, trying to keep her voice steady. I was here last night and you refused to serve me because of my coat. I'd like to talk to the manager. A teenage girl with dark hair tied in a ponytail glanced at her doubtfully. The bakery's closed. The manager isn't here. The owner, Alina said, voice now firmer. If you know who to contact. The girl shrugged and turned away, clearly uninterested. Alina swallowed her frustration and stepped outside to wait on the sidewalk. She leaned against a lamppost, glancing at the passing cars and a few pedestrians. A man in a suit and tie walked by, briefcase in hand. She considered approaching him, maybe someone who worked in the town hall. But he didn't look available. She pulled out her phone and typed a quick message to Jake. Bakery manager not here, bakery closed, not sure what next. He texted back, keep at it, if you need me I'll help, stand up for yourself. His offer warmed her. She slipped her phone into her pocket. As she walked back toward her car, someone called her from behind. Hey! She turned to see a middle-aged woman in a linen dress carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers and a paper bag. Yes? Alina asked. I heard about what happened last night, the woman said softly, brushing a strand of curly brown hair from her face. She offered the flowers, daisies, Queen Anne's lace, and cornflowers picked from the roadside. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. My name is Claire Johnson. I'm a nurse at the community clinic. My granddaughter goes to school with your son. Would you accept these? Alina's chest tightened as she looked at the simple bouquet. Thankful tears stung her eyes. Thank you. You didn't have to do that. But I wanted to, Claire said. I thought if I could help in some small way. She hesitated, glancing down at the paper bag in her hand. I also got you this. She handed Alina the bag. It's a loaf of sourdough from my father's bakery in town. He insists on baking extra loaves each night, and he wanted to make sure someone was fed after that ordeal. You don't even have to pay for it. Alina's eyes brimmed with tears as she accepted both gifts. I don't know what to say. Thank you so much. Claire nodded. We're neighbors here in Seabrook. People look out for one another. I'm sorry no one spoke up for you last night. That's not who we are. They stood in front of the bakery, the neon open sign long extinguished. Cars passed, people strolled by, and Alina felt as though the world was a little sunnier. She offered Claire a small, grateful smile. You have no idea how much this means. Claire patted her shoulder. You're welcome. And hey, if you ever decide you've had enough of that old place, let me know. My father's thinking of opening a new cafe next month. Something small, family-owned. I think the town needs more spots that welcome everyone, regardless of coat color. Over the next few days, Alina and Claire ran into each other often. At the grocery store, at the marina, and once at the library where they noticed other neighbors, whispering in approval when they saw the two of them talking. Word spread fast in a small town, and soon people were sharing stories of the incident at Summer Breeze Bakery. Some expressed outrage. Others simply shook their heads and muttered that these things shouldn't happen in America. A handful of locals, people who had stayed silent, began to approach Alina in the streets, offering apologies or at least sympathetic nods. That weekend, Claire invited Alina to visit the empty storefront, where her father, Mr. Johnson, planned to open his cafe. The space was located on Elm Avenue, just a few blocks from the original bakery. It was small and sunlit with large windows overlooking a cobblestone sidewalk and the occasional seagull wheeling in the sky. The hardwood floors were dusty but polished, and the brick walls were freshly painted in a warm cream. Mr. Johnson, a kind-faced man with streaks of gray in his mustache, greeted Alina and Jaden, her 6-year-old son, when they arrived. "Welcome," he said, shaking Alina's hand firmly. "I'm Martin Johnson." He beamed at Jaden, who clutched the paper bag containing the sourdough. "And you must be Jaden. I heard you like my father's bread." Jaden nodded shyly, peering at the mismatched cafe tables stacked in the corner. "Yes," Martin winked. "Well, some of the first loaves I bake will be for you, my friend." He led them inside, gesturing at the empty space. "My vision for the Harbor Cafe is to be a place where everyone feels welcome. Townspeople, newcomers, sailors, kids, mothers with toddlers, everyone." He pointed to a chalkboard behind what would become the counter. "We'll have coffee, pastries, soup for lunch. And I want to hang paintings by local artists on the walls, and eventually host small concerts on Friday nights." Alina's eyes widened at his enthusiasm. "That sounds amazing. When will you open?" Martin's face clouded just a bit. "We had hoped next month, but, well, my contractors back-ordered on equipment, and I lost a few investors when they heard some people in town didn't want me opening a bakery after what happened at Summer Breeze." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "They said, 'Why invest in another place if you're just going to take business away?' But I told them my goal isn't to hurt anyone. I just want to bake bread and make coffee. Serve people with kindness." Jaden, clutching the sourdough, tugged gently on Alina's sleeve. "Mom, can I have a muffin now?" Alina smiled and said, "Sure, buddy." Then she turned to Martin. "I want to help. I can volunteer on weekends, cleaning tables, helping with dishes, greeting customers." Martin's eyes lit up. "That would be wonderful, Alina." He looked at his daughter, Claire, who gave a thumbs up from the doorway. "Even if I have to start small, maybe just one table and a couple of chairs outside to begin with. I know we'll get there." Over the next few weeks, as Alina juggled her marina job and raising Jaden, she helped Martin prepare for the cafe's grand opening. She and Claire painted shelves, assembled crates of herbs for window boxes, and organized the menu board. They baked cookies in the Johnson's home kitchen, oatmeal raisin and triple chocolate chip, to offer as samples. Alina wrote a small notice for the bulletin board at the community center. "Grand opening, the Harbor Cafe, Elm Avenue, next Wednesday at 8 a.m. Serving freshly baked pastries, sandwiches, coffee, and soup. All are welcome." On opening day, a soft drizzle fell, but a crowd still gathered outside. People huddled under umbrellas, checking their watches and craning to peek inside. When the clock struck 8, Martin flipped the open sign in the window, and Alina squeezed Jaden's hand as the door opened. Inside, a long wooden counter stretched along one wall with a gleaming espresso machine and stacks of fresh pastries under glass domes. A shelf behind the counter displayed homemade jams, local honey, and jars of Harbor Spice Blend. A chalkboard above read, "Today's specials, clam chowder, turkey and brie on ciabatta, blueberry scones, Yeti's iced coffee." Small tables with mismatched chairs filled the rest of the space, and the window boxes glowed with purple petunias and rosemary sprigs. As the first customers arrived, townspeople sporting rain jackets, cyclists who had pedaled in for breakfast, and a few of the original bakery patrons, Alina greeted them with a warm smile and a menu. Some ordered croissants and cappuccinos, others chose bagels and lattes. The murmur of conversation filled the air. The espresso machine hissed, and the smell of coffee mingled with cinnamon and melted butter. A man in his 60s, glasses perched on his nose, approached Martin and shook his hand. "So this is where you're doing it, Johnson?" he said, voice gruff but not unkind. "I'll have your coffee, medium roast, please. Black. Oh, and a blueberry muffin." Martin poured the coffee and handed it over. The man took a cautious bite of the muffin, his eyes widening. "That's really good," he said. "Might even be better than what they used to make across town." A few heads turned toward Martin, and murmurs of agreement rippled through the cafe. Meanwhile, Alina spotted Mrs. Beckett, the owner of the old grocery store, standing in the corner, looking at a display of homemade jams. She approached her with a latte. "Good morning," she said warmly. "Would you like to try some of our fresh scones?" Mrs. Beckett gave a small nod. She took a bite and blinked. These are quite delicious. For a moment, she looked at Alina's blue coat and hesitated, then said, I, I'm sorry about what happened at the other bakery. Alina's breath caught. Thank you, she said simply. Mrs. Beckett hesitated and then slipped a $10 bill across the table. I'll have that one, too. As the morning progressed, word of mouth spread quickly. By mid-morning, a steady line formed outside, and soon, the Harbor Cafe was buzzing. A local newspaper reporter took pictures and interviewed Martin. A television crew arrived to capture footage for the evening news. Footage of Alina handing Jaden a hot chocolate, of Claire arranging flowers on the tables, of townspeople conversing in accents from all over. Southern drawls, New Yorker tones, and Spanish words mixed into English sentences. The cafe felt alive, as though every element of kindness and generosity were being poured into the room. That afternoon, after the opening rush subsided, Alina and Martin cleaned up. He brewed a fresh pot of coffee, and they shared a moment by the counter. Outside, the drizzle had stopped, and sunlight broke through the clouds in golden rays. Alina rested her head on his shoulder. I never imagined something good could come out of that awful night at Summer Breeze, she admitted quietly. Martin smiled and handed her a warm, empty coffee cup. Sometimes the hardest moments give us a chance to do better. Seabrook may need a lesson in kindness, but I believe we can teach it. Alina nodded and turned to gaze out the window, where children splashed through puddles and parents strolled by with umbrellas. Jaden dashed past, chasing after a balloon that Claire had tied outside for him. He looked up at his mother and waved, blue raincoat gleaming in the sunlight. Alina felt a lump in her throat, pride, relief, and gratitude all mingling together. Over the following months, the Harbor Cafe grew into the heart of Seabrook. On weekday mornings, fishermen stopped in for coffee before heading out to sea. On weekends, families savored pancakes and apple cider donuts. Martin introduced community nights on Tuesdays, when local musicians performed folk and jazz in the corner by the window. Once a month, Alina and Claire hosted Cultural Kitchen, an evening where families from different backgrounds prepared traditional dishes to share. Mexican enchiladas, Nepalese momo dumplings, Lebanese hummus, Southern cornbread. Locals who had once refused to serve a woman in a blue coat now lined up for a taste of al pastor tacos or kibe with yogurt sauce. Seabrook had changed. It no longer whispered, "You have no place here." Instead, it welcomed everyone with open arms, warm bread, and fresh coffee. For Alina, this transformation was more than just a business success story. It was proof that a single act of kindness, Claire's bouquet of wildflowers and sourdough loaf, could ripple outward to transform a community. It showed her son, Jaden, the power of compassion. It healed her heart from the sting of discrimination and gave her a new sense of purpose. And it taught the town that sometimes all it takes to open doors is a simple act of goodwill, a willingness to serve, and the courage to stand up for what is right. On the one-year anniversary of that fateful July evening, Martin hosted a celebration at the cafe. A banner under the awning read, "1 year of harbor, thank you, Seabrook." Alina wore her blue coat again, unafraid, holding a bouquet of daisies in her hand. She helped serve slices of cherry pie to customers, accepted hugs and thanks from neighbors, and watched as Jaden performed a small song for the crowd. "You Are My Sunshine," his young voice clear and bright. As the sun dipped below the horizon over the harbor, Alina stood at the cafe's entrance, breathing in the salty air mixed with the scent of espresso and warm bread. A group of townspeople gathered on the sidewalk, chatting and laughing. One of them, a woman named Peggy, who had run off the bakery owner's daughter years earlier over a minor argument, approached Alina with a sheepish smile. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said. I never realized how we were treating you. This place changed my mind." Alina extended a hand. "You're welcome," she said softly. "I'm glad you came." As night fell, the cafe lights shone like beacons against the dusk sky. Inside, regulars and newcomers sat together at tables, sharing food, stories, and laughter. Alina looked around at the warmth and realized that her son, running to hug her once more, was growing up in a town that had learned to welcome him, all because a stranger had offered her flowers and a loaf of bread when she had nowhere else to turn. It took just one act of compassion to open a cafe, to open hearts, and to show a small American town that kindness is always more powerful than fear.